They thought they could humiliate me publicly, and I'd disappear quietly. But they forgot one thing: I was the only one keeping this entire empire running. And when they pushed me out like worthless trash, I turned their company into a $200,000 per day nightmare. This isn't a story about failure. This is a story about consequences. They wanted me gone. Fine, but they never considered what would happen when the person holding all their federal compliance keys decided to use them one last time. My name is Rachel Carter, and until 3 hours ago, I was the senior compliance officer at Stratton Systems, one of the largest defense contractors on the East Coast. Now I'm standing in the main conference hall, holding a cardboard box, while 200 of my former colleagues watch me being escorted out like a criminal. It started at 9:30 this morning. Derek Lawson, our new CEO, 35, Harvard MBA, and possessed of that particular brand of cold arrogance that comes from never having worked a real day in his life, called an all-hands meeting. He stood at the podium, his Italian suit pristine, his smile sharp as broken glass. "Stratton Systems is entering a new era of efficiency," he announced, his voice echoing through the packed auditorium. "And that means making difficult decisions about redundancies." The word hung in the air like poison gas. Redundancies. Not people, not careers, not lives, just redundancies. He began reading names. Each one felt like a gunshot echoing through the room. Marketing, sales, it. Then he paused, his eyes scanning the crowd until they found me, sitting in the third row where I'd sat for every company meeting for the past decade. "Rachel Carter, compliance." The blood drained from my face. Around me, heads turned. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through dead leaves. 10 years, 10 fucking years of 60-hour weeks, of catching violations that would have cost us millions in federal fines, of being the only person who actually understood the labyrinth of defense contracting regulations that kept this company alive. "Those named will need to collect their belongings immediately," Lawson continued, his tone as casual as if he were ordering coffee. "Security will assist with the transition." Security, not HR. Security, like we were threats, like we were thieves. 2 guards materialized beside me, kids, really, probably making $15 an hour to humiliate people who'd helped build this company. One of them, his acne still visible beneath patchy facial hair, wouldn't meet my eyes as he gestured toward the aisle. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us." The walk to my office felt like a funeral procession. Colleagues I'd worked with for years suddenly found their phones fascinating, their shoes requiring immediate inspection. Sarah from accounting, who'd cried on my shoulder during her divorce, stared straight through me. Jim from legal, whose ass I'd saved from a federal audit just last month, actually stepped back as I passed, as if unemployment was contagious. The guards flanked me as I packed. They handed me the cardboard box, not even a decent banker's box. Just some flimsy thing from the supply closet. I filled it mechanically, the photo of my sister's kids, my compliance certifications, the crystal paperweight the team had given me for my 5th anniversary, 10 years compressed into a box that weighed less than my laptop bag. "You have 5 minutes, the older guard said, tapping his watch. 5 minutes to erase a decade. I looked around the office I'd practically lived in, the whiteboard still covered with my handwriting, mapping out the compliance timeline for our latest Pentagon contract, the coffee mug "World's Best Aunt" still half full from this morning when I'd thought this was going to be just another Tuesday. HR appeared in my doorway, a tablet in hand, Monica, her smile as fake as her designer handbag. Couldn't hide her satisfaction. She'd always resented that I reported directly to the board, that I had the authority to override her department's decisions when they conflicted with federal regulations. "I need your badge, your parking pass, and your company devices," she chirped. "You'll receive information about your final paycheck and COBRA benefits via mail." I handed over the items that had defined my professional identity. The badge photo showed me from 5 years ago. Still naive enough to believe that loyalty meant something, Monica swiped through her tablet with manicured nails that probably cost more than most people's grocery bills. "Oh, and you'll need to sign this separation agreement. It confirms you'll transfer all your compliance authorizations to your successor within the grace period." She pushed the tablet toward me. The older guard shifted impatiently. Through my office window, I could see the conference room where Lawson was probably already planning his victory lunch, confident that he'd just saved the company $3 million in salaries without any consequences. That's when I remembered I wasn't just any compliance officer. I was the only compliance officer certified to maintain our federal defense contracts, the only one with the clearances, the only one whose biometric signature was registered in the Pentagon's contractor database. And I still had 6 hours of legal access. My hand hovered over the tablet. Monica's smile widened, mistaking my hesitation for defeat. The guards looked bored. Nobody knew what I knew. Nobody understood what they'd just done. "I'll need to review this with my lawyer," I said, handing the tablet back unsigned. Monica's face twitched. "The grace period is 6 hours. I know. I wrote that policy." I picked up my pathetic cardboard box and walked toward the elevator, the guards trailing behind me like reluctant shadows. As the doors closed, I saw my reflection in the polished steel 34 years old, professionally dead, carrying my career in a box. But I also saw something else, something that made me smile for the first time all morning. I saw opportunity. The cardboard box sat on my kitchen counter like an accusation. Inside it, 10 years of my life looked pathetically small. I pulled out the crystal paperweight, remembering the day they gave it to me. 5-year anniversary. There'd been cake in the break room, and the old CEO, Marcus Wright, had shaken my hand and said I was the backbone of Stratton's federal compliance. Marcus was gone now, forced out 6 months ago to make way for Lawson's new vision. I poured myself a glass of scotch, the kind I'd been saving for a moment that truly mattered. If ending my own career didn't count as one, then what would? 10 years, the number kept echoing in my head. 10 years since I'd walked into Stratton Systems as a junior compliance analyst, fresh from Georgetown with my shiny new degree and naive optimism. I'd been 24, hungry, ready to conquer the corporate world. The memories flooded back uninvited. My first major audit 3 days straight. Sleeping under my desk. Surviving on vending machine coffee and determination. I'd found a $17 million discrepancy that would have triggered federal penalties. The relief on Marcus's face when I presented the solution. The promotion that followed. Then came the Pentagon contract review of 2019, 6 months of 18-hour days, cross-referencing thousands of pages of regulations, building the compliance framework from scratch. My ex-husband, now had accused me of having an affair because I was never home. The irony was bitter. I was married to my job, and it was a jealous spouse. "You love that company more than your own family," he'd said the night he left. Looking at the divorce papers next to my termination box, maybe he'd been right. I opened my laptop and pulled up the federal contractor database. My credentials still worked 5 hours and 43 minutes left on the grace period. There was my profile. Rachel Marie Carter, Senior Compliance Officer, Stratton Systems, authorized signatory for all federal defense contracts, security clearance, top secret, certification status, active. Below that, a list of every contract I managed, 237 active projects worth $800 million, each one requiring my biometric authorization for any changes, updates, or transfers, each one dependent on my personal certification to remain valid. The irony was exquisite. They'd fired me to save money, but I literally held the keys to their entire federal revenue stream. Without me, they couldn't modify contracts, submit invoices, or even respond to government audits. The system was designed that way on purpose after too many contractors had played musical chairs with responsibilities to avoid accountability. The Pentagon had mandated that one person, and only one person, could hold primary compliance authority. I'd tried to explain this to Lawson when he first arrived. I'd sent him 3 memos outlining the critical nature of compliance continuity. He'd responded to exactly none of them. In his world of Harvard case studies and McKinsey PowerPoints, people like me were just overhead, replaceable cogs. My phone buzzed, a text from Tom in a T. "Rachel, I'm so sorry. This is fucked up. You saved all our asses so many times." Then another from Linda in contracts. "Can't believe they did this to you. You're the only reason we never got fined." And another, and another. The messages poured in from people who'd been too afraid to make eye contact 3 hours ago. Their courage had found them now that I was safely off premises. I walked to my home office, the room where I'd spent countless nights fixing other people's mistakes, ensuring every I was dotted and every T was crossed. The walls were covered with certificates, commendations, letters of appreciation from various government departments, proof that I'd been exceptional at my job, proof that had meant nothing when Lawson decided to trim the fat. On my desk was a photo from last year's Christmas party, the compliance team, my team raising glasses, wearing ridiculous sweaters, genuinely happy. I'd fought for their bonuses, defended them from HR's periodic purges, made sure they got credit for their wins. This morning, not one of them had said goodbye. I didn't blame them. In corporate America, survival meant knowing when to become invisible. But there was one photo that stopped me cold. The company picnic. 2 years ago, my sister Emma and her kids had come, my nephew Jamie, then 6, wearing a Stratton Systems baseball cap that swallowed his tiny head. Aunt Rachel's company is going to build rocket ships, he'd announced to anyone who'd listen. I'd been so proud that day, so stupidly, pathetically proud. The laptop screen glowed, cursor blinking in the authorization field. One click to transfer my authorities to whoever they designated as my replacement. One click to be the good soldier, to go quietly into the night, to prove that their assessment of me as a pushover, a nobody, a redundancy, was correct. Or one click to show them exactly how much of a nobody I wasn't. I thought about every holiday I'd missed, every family gathering I'd left early, every friend I'd lost touch with because Stratton Systems always needed me. I thought about the raise I'd been promised last year that never materialized, the promotion to VP that went to Lawson's golf buddy instead, the countless times I'd been told to wait my turn. Be patient. Be a team player. My phone rang. Monica from HR. Rachel, I need to confirm you're processing the authorization transfer. Mr. Lawson wants assurance that... I hung up. Let her report that back to Lawson. Let him feel the first tickle of concern that maybe, just maybe, he'd miscalculated. The scotch burned warm in my chest. Outside my window, the city went about its business, indifferent to my small tragedy, but sometimes, small tragedies could become very large problems for the people who caused them. I closed the transfer window without saving and opened a different screen entirely. The Federal Compliance Termination Protocol. My finger hovered over the button. 10 years of loyalty, and they'd thrown me away like garbage. Time to return the favor. The elevator descended from the executive floor, each ding marking another level of my professional funeral. The guards flanked me like I was a flight risk, their hands resting on their utility belts as if I might suddenly weaponize my pathetic cardboard box. 23 floors to go. 23 floors to make a decision that would either make me a doormat or a legend. I pulled out my personal laptop, balancing it on top of the box. The younger guard shifted nervously. Ma'am, you can't access company systems on personal devices. I'm not accessing company systems, I said, typing in my federal credentials. I'm accessing government systems. There's a difference. The Pentagon's contractor portal loaded slowly, each second stretching like an eternity. My reflection in the elevator's brass fixtures looked ghostly pale, hollow-eyed, but something else too. Determined, furious. Floor 18. The screen finally loaded. There it was, the compliance dashboard for Stratton Systems. Every contract, every authorization, every delicate thread that held their federal funding together, all registered under my biometric profile. Ma'am, I need to ask you to close that laptop, the older guard said. No, ma'am. Check your employee handbook. Section 12, subsection 4. Security personnel have no authority over federal compliance matters. I wrote that section. I should know. He hesitated, looking at his partner. They were out of their depth, and they knew it. They were trained to escort fired employees out, not to handle someone who still held the legal keys to the kingdom. Floor 15. My fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced precision. The termination protocol was complex, intentionally so. The Pentagon had designed it to prevent exactly what Stratton had just done, firing compliance officers without proper succession planning. It required 3 confirmations, 2 biometric scans, and a legal attestation that no qualified successor was available. My phone buzzed incessantly. Monica, Lawson, unknown numbers that were probably legal. I ignored them all. Floor 12. The first confirmation screen appeared. This action will immediately suspend all federal contract authorities for Stratton Systems. Continue. My thumb lingered above the fingerprint scanner. Once I pressed it, there would be no return. No smoothing things over with a casual, "Sorry, misunderstanding." This was the point of no return for the company, though for me, the ending had already happened. They had erased me 3 hours earlier in that conference room. Floor 10. The elevator stopped. A group of engineers got on, saw the guards, saw me, and immediately developed a fascination with their phones. I recognized David from Systems Integration. I'd saved his project from federal audit hell just 2 months ago. He risked a glance at me, something like sympathy in his eyes, but said nothing. Floor 8. Second confirmation. Warning: contract suspension will trigger automatic federal review. Estimated impact: immediate cessation of all regulated activities. Continue. The younger guard was sweating. He could see the screen, could read the warnings, but didn't understand what they meant. The older one was on his radio, mumbling something about unusual activity. Floor 6. My phone rang again. This time, it was Charles Brennan, chairman of the board. They'd gone straight to the top. I let it ring. The final screen loaded. Legal attestation required by proceeding. You certify under penalty of perjury that no qualified successor is available to assume compliance responsibilities. False attestation is a federal crime punishable by up to 5 years imprisonment. This was the moment, the knife's edge between victim and victor. They hadn't assigned a successor. I knew they hadn't because there was nobody else at Stratton with the required certifications. It would take them weeks to hire someone, months to get them cleared and certified. They'd assumed I'd roll over, transfer my authorities to some temporary placeholder, and slink away quietly. They'd assumed wrong. Floor 3. The engineers exited quickly, practically running once the doors opened. Smart. They could smell the violence in the air, even if it was just corporate violence. Floor 2. Final warning. The screen read, "This action cannot be reversed without full federal review. Estimated review period, 90 to 120 days. 90 to 120 days. 3 to 4 months of complete paralysis. No new contracts. No modifications to existing ones. No invoices processed. No payments received. For a company that operated on slim margins and massive cash flow, it would be like cutting off oxygen." Ground floor. The elevator doors opened to the marble lobby I'd walked through thousands of times. The security desk where I'd badged in every morning at 7:30 for 10 years. The coffee cart where Maria knew my order by heart, large dark roast. 1 sugar. No cream. The modern art sculpture that we all secretly thought looked like a twisted colon but pretended to admire when clients visited. The guard stepped out first, expecting me to follow. I remained in the elevator. Laptop still open. Finger still poised over the scanner. "Ma'am, we need you to exit the building," the older guard said, his hand moving to his radio. I looked at him, really looked at him. Probably mid-50s. Probably been doing this job for years. Probably had a family to feed. He was just following orders. They all were. Following orders from a 35-year-old CEO who thought people were spreadsheet entries. "I need 1 minute," I said. 1 minute to finish this federal filing, and then I'll leave. You can stand right here and watch me." He looked uncertain but nodded. Maybe he recognized something in my face. Maybe he'd been somebody's redundancy once too. I read the screen one more time. 3 to 4 months of hell for Stratton Systems. Hundreds of millions in frozen contracts. Federal investigations. Lawson's smug face when he'd have to explain to shareholders why his efficiency initiative had cost them everything. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Derek Lawson. Whatever you're thinking of doing, we can discuss this. Please call me immediately." Please, the magic word. Too little, too late. I pressed my thumb to the scanner. The first biometric confirmation registered with a soft beep. I pressed my index finger. The second confirmation. Then I typed my federal identification number and checked the box. I certify under penalty of perjury that no qualified successor is available. It wasn't perjury, it was the truth. They'd made sure of that when they'd fired me without a succession plan. The button turned red. Terminate all authorities. I clicked it. The screen flashed once, then displayed a simple message. Stratton Systems federal compliance authorities have been terminated. Notification has been sent to all relevant agencies. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. Even the Pentagon had a sense of humor. I closed the laptop, tucked it under my arm, and stepped out of the elevator. The guards looked relieved. They had no idea what had just happened. No idea that I'd just lit a $200,000 per day fuse. Thank you for your patience, I said, walking toward the exit. The revolving door pushed me out into the afternoon sun. Behind me, Stratton Systems towered 40 floors into the sky, all glass and steel and corporate ambition, in approximately 6 minutes. When the federal systems updated and propagated the termination notice, alarms would start going off, emails would flood inboxes, phones would scream, and Derek Lawson would learn that some redundancies were anything but. 6 minutes. That's how long it took for the first domino to fall. I was sitting in my apartment, laptop open to Stratton's public status page, a fresh cup of coffee steaming beside me. The cardboard box of my former life sat forgotten in the corner. At 2:17 p.m., the first red alert appeared. Pentagon contractor portal Stratton Systems. Status suspended. Then another, and another, like watching a building collapse in slow motion. Each system that connected to the federal database registered the termination and responded accordingly. The cascade was beautiful in its thoroughness. My phone exploded. 43 missed calls in the first minute. I turned it to silent and watched the screen light up like a slot machine. Text messages poured in so fast they became a blur. I caught fragments. Urgent. What did you do? Call immediately. Systems locked out. I opened my personal email and set up an auto-reply. I am no longer employed by Stratton Systems. Please direct all compliance inquiries to Derek Lawson, CEO. On my laptop, I pulled up Stratton's internal Slack. They hadn't revoked my access yet. Another oversight in their rush termination. The channel explosion was magnificent. Engineering General. Anyone else locked out of the Boeing project files? IT support. Mass authentication failure across all federal systems. This is not a drill. Project management. Urgent all Pentagon deliverables, showing as contractor suspended, need immediate resolution. And then, the crown jewel, from Lawson himself in the all-hands channel. Technical issue being resolved. All departments continue normal operations. Technical issue. I actually laughed. Coffee nearly shooting out my nose. Within minutes, his lie would become obvious. I opened a news aggregator and set up alerts for Stratton Systems. It took 12 minutes for the first story to break. A small defense industry blog. Rumors of major compliance crisis at Stratton Systems. Then Reuters picked it up. Then Bloomberg. My phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Rachel, this is Tom Walsh from Boeing Procurement. Tom, we'd worked together for 3 years on the fighter jet modernization program. Good man. Straight shooter. Hi, Tom. I should mention I no longer work for Stratton. Jesus Christ, Rachel. What the hell is happening? We just got federal notice that all Stratton contracts are suspended. We've got $17 million in equipment sitting on the tarmac waiting for your authorization codes. I'd refer you to Mr. Lawson. He made it clear this morning that my position was redundant. Silence. Then, they fired you. They fired their only certified compliance officer. Efficiency initiative, apparently. Those fucking idiots. Do they have any idea? Rachel, we're going to have to freeze all joint operations. This could shut down our entire Eastern production line. I'm aware. Can you fix this, I mean? Surely there's something. I'm no longer authorized to act on Stratton's behalf. Tom, any attempt to do so would be federal fraud. I'm sure Mr. Lawson has a plan. Harvard MBA and all. Tom cursed creatively for 30 seconds before hanging up. The Slack channels had devolved into pure chaos. Engineers were getting kicked out of secure databases mid-task. Financial systems were rejecting invoice submissions. The legal team was in full meltdown mode, using words like catastrophic and unprecedented. Then came the announcement I'd been waiting for. 3:27 p.m. in the Executive Priority Channel. All senior staff to Conference Room A immediately. Emergency session. I pulled up Twitter. Stratton Crisis was already trending in the DFC area. Someone had leaked an internal email where Lawson called the situation a minor technical glitch. The replies were brutal. Short sellers were already circling like sharks. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Emma. Seeing stuff about Stratton online. You okay? Best day I've had in years, I replied. And it was true. For the first time in a decade, I felt alive. Not the grinding, soul-crushing alive of corporate survival, but actually alive, powerful, relevant. A notification popped up on my laptop. Someone was trying to access my federal credentials remotely. The IP traced back to Stratton's IT department. They were actually trying to hack my personal accounts. I screenshot everything and forwarded it to my lawyer with a note. Federal crime. Prosecute if they continue. The news cycle was accelerating. CNBC had picked up the story. Defense contractor Stratton Systems faces federal suspension. Stock futures point to 15% drop at open. 15%. That was nearly $200 million in market cap. Gone. Because they wanted to save my salary. Another Slack message, this time from Monica in HR. All staff. Anyone in contact with Rachel Carter must report immediately. Do not respond to any requests from her. Like I was some kind of terrorist. Like I was the threat, not the consequence of their own stupidity. My lawyer called. Rachel, I've had 17 calls from Stratton Legal in the past hour. They're claiming you sabotaged them. I followed federal protocol for termination of compliance authority. Everything by the book. They're saying you had a duty to transfer authorities. Check my personnel file. They never presented me with a qualified successor. Federal law is clear I cannot transfer authorities to an unqualified individual. That would be fraud. Jesus, they really didn't have anyone else. They had 10 years to train a backup. They chose not to. Cost-cutting measure. He whistled low. This is going to get ugly. They're already threatening litigation. Let them. Discovery will be fascinating. Especially the part where they explain to a federal judge why they fired their only compliance officer without a succession plan. After we hung up, I made popcorn and settled in to watch the show. The local news at 5 led with the story. They had a reporter outside Stratton headquarters where employees were streaming out, many looking shell-shocked. The reporter managed to grab one engineer who looked directly at the camera and said, "They fired the one person who knew how everything worked. This is what happens." By 6 p.m., the Pentagon had issued a formal statement. We are aware of the compliance issues at Stratton Systems and are reviewing all contracts. The safety and reliability of our defense contractors is paramount. Translation: Stratton was fucked. My phone had logged 213 missed calls. Lawson alone had called 37 times. The text messages had evolved from demanding to pleading to threatening and back to pleading. The latest one, sent at 6:43 p.m., simply read, "Name your price." I screenshotted it and saved it. Evidence for later. Then I poured myself a glass of wine and raised it to the window, where I could see Stratton's building in the distance, lights blazing as they scrambled to contain the uncontainable. To redundancy, I said to no one. The wine tasted like victory. Day 2 of the crisis. I woke at 6 a.m. to find 3 news vans parked outside my apartment building. My phone showed 468 missed calls. The story had gone national overnight. I made coffee and opened my laptop to find the digital equivalent of a 5-alarm fire. The Wall Street Journal's headline, Stratton Systems attempts to forge compliance documents as federal investigation launches. Forge? My coffee mug stopped halfway to my lips. The article detailed how Stratton had submitted fraudulent paperwork to the Pentagon at 11:47 p.m. last night, claiming that one Michael Torres was their new compliance officer. One problem: Michael Torres was a junior analyst with no federal certifications, no security clearance, and had only been with the company 6 months. The Pentagon's automated systems had immediately flagged the submission as fraudulent and referred it to the Department of Justice. Lawson, in his desperation, had just committed a federal crime. My lawyer called at 6:30 a.m. "Rachel, you need to see this. Check your email." I opened the attachment. It was a cease and desist from Stratton's legal team. But that wasn't the interesting part. The interesting part was the memo attached to it, an internal communication from Lawson to the board, dated yesterday at 8 p.m. Someone on the inside had leaked it. "Carter's actions constitute corporate terrorism. She has deliberately sabotaged this company out of spite. We are exploring all legal options, including criminal charges for theft of corporate intellectual property and violation of fiduciary duty. Furthermore, her mental stability should be questioned. No rational person would destroy hundreds of careers over a personnel decision." Mental stability. The classic corporate gaslighting move. Paint the woman as hysterical. But the best part was the last paragraph. "We estimate complete system restoration within 24-48 hours once we have secured temporary federal authorization." He still didn't understand. There was no temporary authorization. The federal system didn't work that way. It would take a minimum of 90 days for review, and that was if they hadn't committed fraud, which they now had. My phone rang. A 202 area code. Washington, D.C. "Ms. Carter, this is Special Agent Jennifer Walsh from the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division." My stomach tightened. "Yes. We're investigating potential fraud at Stratton Systems. We understand you were recently terminated from your position there." "Yesterday morning, yes. We'd like to speak with you about the compliance situation. To be clear, you're not under investigation. We're interested in understanding the sequence of events." "I'd be happy to cooperate. Should I have my lawyer present?" "That's your right, certainly. But again, you're not a target. We're more interested in why Stratton would file fraudulent federal documents." We scheduled a meeting for that afternoon. After hanging up, I realized I was smiling. The FBI. Lawson had actually attracted the attention of the FBI. I turned on CNBC. Stratton's stock was in freefall, down 23% at market open. The ticker showed a parade of red. The anchors were having a field day. "This is unprecedented," one analyst was saying. "A major defense contractor essentially locked out of all federal systems because they fired the wrong person. It's like firing your IT admin without getting the passwords first, except the stakes are hundreds of millions in revenue." The Slack channels were still visible on my laptop. They still hadn't revoked my access, probably because their IT department was too overwhelmed to handle basic security. The internal chaos was escalating. Sales team. Lost Boeing, lost Lockheed, Northrop pulling out. This is a massacre. Engineering general. Can't access any project files. Dead in the water. Finance. Payroll system rejected federal contract payments. We're looking at default on obligations within 72 hours. And then, a message that made me sit up straight, from someone an executive assistant. Lawson locked in his office, board called emergency meeting for noon, heard the word replacement multiple times. They were going to fire him, after one day. My doorbell rang. I checked the security camera to find a delivery person with an enormous flower arrangement. The card read, "From your friends still trapped in hell. Thank you for showing us the Emperor has no clothes. Anonymous." I set the flowers on my kitchen counter and took a photo. Evidence of support from inside. My lawyer would love this. The news cycle continued its feeding frenzy. By noon, 3 major clients had announced they were reassessing their relationships with Stratton. Translation pulling their contracts as soon as legally possible. The company's market cap had evaporated by 31%. Nearly $500 million. Gone. Then came the video that changed everything. Someone, God bless them, had recorded Lawson's meltdown in conference room A. The video was shaky, clearly filmed secretly through a cracked door, but the audio was crystal clear. "I don't give a fuck about federal protocols," Lawson was screaming. "Override them, break them. I don't care if we have to hack the fucking Pentagon. Fix this now." A calmer voice, probably legal. "Sir, that would be, you're all useless. That bitch planned this. She sat in my meeting, took her termination, and planned this." The sound of something breaking, A laptop against a wall, from the sound of it. Sir, please. Get me someone at the Pentagon. Get me the Secretary of Defense. Get me the fucking president if you have to. This is corporate sabotage. Sir, she followed federal protocols. Protocols. She destroyed us with protocols. More breaking sounds. Then, I want her destroyed. You hear me? I want Rachel Carter's life ruined. I want her unemployable. I want her... The video cut off. Within an hour, it had 3 million views on Twitter. Hashtag Lawson Meltdown was trending globally. Stratton's stock dropped another 8%. My lawyer texted, "That video is a gift from God. Save everything." The doorbell rang again. This time it was a process server with papers from Stratton. They were suing me for $200 million in damages. I actually laughed as I signed for them. They were suing me for following federal law. My phone buzzed with another DC number. Ms. Carter? This is Margaret Stone from the Senate Armed Services Committee. We're scheduling hearings on the Stratton Systems situation. Your testimony would be invaluable. Senate hearings, public testimony, under oath, where Lawson would have to explain why he fired his only compliance officer without a succession plan. I'd be honored to testify, Senator. After she hung up, I stood at my window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, in a 40-floor glass tower, Derek Lawson was watching his empire crumble, all because he'd thought I was expendable, redundant. The latest CNN alert popped up on my phone. Stratton Systems Board of Directors calls emergency meeting as federal investigations expand. I poured myself another coffee and settled in to watch. The day was still young, and Lawson's education and consequences had only just begun. Day 3. The death spiral was accelerating. I woke at 5 a.m. to my lawyer calling, "Rachel, turn on CNN, now." The breaking news banner screamed, "Stratton Systems CEO Derek Lawson removed by board. FBI raids corporate headquarters." The footage was surreal. Federal agents carrying boxes out of the building I'd entered every day for a decade. The same marble lobby where I'd been escorted out like a criminal was now an actual crime scene. The irony was delicious. The reporter on scene looked exhausted. She'd probably been there all night. Sources inside Stratton Systems tell us that Derek Lawson was forcibly removed from the building at 2 a.m. this morning after refusing to leave his office. Security footage, which we cannot independently verify, allegedly shows the former CEO being physically carried out while screaming threats at board members. Former CEO. The title change had taken less than 72 hours. My phone buzzed with messages from former colleagues, the same ones who'd avoided eye contact during my walk of shame. Now they were eager to share insider information. Lawson destroyed his office, threw a monitor through the window. Facility says it's $50K in damage. He tried to delete servers before IT stopped him, claiming everyone betrayed him. Board hired emergency crisis management firm. They're calling this worse than Enron. Worse than Enron. From a simple firing to complete corporate collapse in 3 days. I opened my laptop to find an email from the Wall Street Journal. They wanted an exclusive interview. So did Forbes, Fortune, and the Financial Times. Everyone wanted to hear from the woman who'd brought down a billion-dollar defense contractor with a single logout. But the email that stopped me cold was from someone I hadn't heard from in years, Marcus Wright, the old CEO who'd been forced out to make way for Lawson. Rachel, watching the news with great interest. I warned the board that replacing experienced leadership with MBA cowboys would end badly. I just didn't expect it to end this badly. If you need anything, references, legal support, or just someone to share a drink with while watching Lawson's perp walk, call me. Marcus. At 9 a.m., more breaking news. Derek Lawson arrested on federal fraud charges. The footage was perfect. Lawson in handcuffs, his Italian suit wrinkled, his perfect hair disheveled. Being led to a federal vehicle, he looked directly at the cameras, and for a moment, I saw something familiar in his eyes. The same shock I'd felt when he'd called my name in that conference room. The sudden realization that your entire world could end in an instant. The difference was, I hadn't committed any crimes. The prosecutor's statement was damning. Mr. Lawson knowingly submitted fraudulent documents to federal agencies, attempted to hack government databases, and conspired to circumvent national security protocols. These are serious charges that strike at the heart of our defense contracting system. My lawyer called again. They're offering a deal. Want to hear it? I'm listening. Full reinstatement, back pay, a formal public apology, and he paused for effect. $8 million in damages. They're also offering to cover all your legal fees and establish a compliance department that reports directly to the board, not the CEO. $8 million, plus back pay, plus reinstatement with essentially untouchable status. What's the catch? You need to restore their federal access immediately and sign an NDA about the whole situation. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. No. Rachel. They don't get to buy their way out of this. They humiliated me publicly. The consequences should be equally public. The company might not survive without your restoration. We're talking about thousands of jobs. Jobs that Lawson was planning to cut anyway. Did you see his efficiency initiative? He was going to fire 30% of the workforce over the next year, at least this way. They get unemployment and wrongful termination claims. You sure about this? Tell them I'll consider restoring access after the Senate hearings, after the truth is public record, after every single person knows what they did and why it happened. He sighed. They won't like it. They should have thought of that before they called me redundant. The news kept coming. By noon, 3 more Stratton executives had been arrested for conspiracy to commit fraud. The stock was down 67% from Monday's open. Trading had been halted twice. Then came the leak that changed everything again. Someone released Lawson's emails from the past 6 months, his plans to gut the company, sell off the profitable divisions, and walk away with a golden parachute worth $50 million. The terminations were just the first step in a larger scheme to strip the company for parts. The email that particularly stood out was dated 2 weeks ago. Carter is the biggest obstacle. Her compliance requirements slow everything down. First priority is removing her. Then we can accelerate the dismantling. Dismantling. He'd literally planned to destroy Stratton Systems anyway. I'd just beaten him to it. My sister Emma called. You're all over the news. Jamie thinks you're a superhero. He's telling everyone his Aunt Rachel fought the bad guys and won. It's not over yet. Are you kidding? The CEO is in federal custody? The company that screwed you is imploding. You've got them begging. What more could you want? What more indeed? I thought about 10 years of my life. 10 years of missed birthdays, postponed vacations, relationships that withered from neglect. 10 years of being told I was essential while being treated as expendable. Justice, I said. I want justice. The afternoon brought more revelations. The FBI had uncovered a pattern of fraud going back months. Lawson had been cooking the books, hiding cost overruns, lying to the Pentagon about project statuses. My compliance reports had been the only thing keeping him in check, which is why I had to go. The irony was magnificent. They'd fired me for being too good at my job, for being the one person who couldn't be corrupted or intimidated into enabling Lawson's schemes. At 4 p.m., another call from Stratton's board. Charles Brennan himself this time. Rachel, please. We're hemorrhaging money. $200,000 an hour. The board knew nothing about Lawson's plans. We were deceived too. You were deceived when you hired him. You were negligent when you gave him free rein. And you were complicit when you let him fire me without cause. What do you want? I want the truth to come out, all of it. Every email, every memo, every decision that led to this moment, and I want it on public record. That would destroy us. You destroyed yourselves. I just stopped enabling the lie. Silence. Then, the Senate hearing is next week. I'll be there. With restoration after. We'll see how honest you are under oath. After I hung up, I stood at my window again, watching the sun set over the city. Stratton's building was still lit up, every floor blazing as they scrambled to salvage something from the wreckage. But some things couldn't be salvaged. Some brakes couldn't